Namaskar to everyone. Uh, Thank you so much, the organizers, for giving me the opportunity to interact with the participants of this refresher course in geography. My topic is natural resource sustainability of India, and I will be dealing particularly with the reference to the sustainability of India. Let me share my screen and move forward. Thank you. I hope this is visible to all of you. Topic is natural resource sustainability of India, particularly with reference to water sustainability. Now, I'll go in three ways. There will be three sections in my presentation. Initially, I will talk about the concept of sustainable development. Then I will talk about something about resources. And then I will try to interrelate the natural resources and how we can achieve that natural resource sustainability, particularly in terms of water resources, which is one of the important resources in any country for its social economic development. So let's start with this sustainable development concept. And I think most of you knows that sustainable development is now a half a century old concept, because it was the 1972 when it was taken into the consideration in the Stockholm conference in 1972 on the human environment, that environmental preservation and economic development are important. And there is a conflict because the development, or you can say economic development, comes at the cost of environmental degradation. So there is a conflict that should we go for environmental preservation, or how, if we will preserve our environment, the economic development will be hampered. So there was analysis to understand the relationship between both of them, and then it was understood that we need a kind of form of development in which economic development is also ensured, as well as environmental or environment is also preserved. So this issue was raised in 1972 Stockholm Conference, and later on was well taken up by the World Commission on Environment and Development in 1987, which is very much popular as our Common Future report. So this argued that environment in which we live and development by which we improve our economic and social well-beings are inseparable. Development and environment has to go together. We can't compromise with our environment. We can't also compromise with our development. So both the things has to go. So therefore, it is required that we create a kind of balance between economic growth, environmental protection, and as well as our social development. So therefore, the concept of sustainable development came into picture. And you know this lady, Gro Herman Brundtland, and this commission is very much known as Brundtland Commission. And this United Nations popularized this report, which is widely known as Brundtland Commission report, in the form of our Common Future, which has given a classic report or definition of sustainable development, which has been widely accepted. And this sustainable development was used to describe as providing an alternative path of socio-economic form of development. It has been defined in various ways. There are many definitions of sustainable development in the academia, but the most popular definition, which has also been given by the Brundtland Commission itself, is that development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So that means we require a kind of development in which we should take care the needs and aspirations of the current generation. Also, we have to look for the development of our coming generations. So overall, we can say that sustainable development talks about intergenerational equity as well as intra-generational equity. Okay. So the journey is too long actually. From 1972 in Stockholm, then we have moved in 1987, the United Nations for the publication of World Commission Environment Report on our common future. And in after 1987, we moved to Rio 1992, where the Earth Summit and Agenda 21 was taken up. And in response to that, in 1997, Kyoto Protocol was signed that we will reduce our CO2 emissions and other climatic actions we have to take to combat climatic change. So Kyoto Protocol in 1997, and then we moved into 2000 in New York when the Millennium Summit held, and the outcome was seen in the form of Millennium Development Goals in 2002 Johannesburg. And the progress was so impressive in the form of Millennium Development Goals, 8 Millennium Development Goals, that we have continued these Millennium Development Goals to Sustainable Development Goals, where the foundation was in 2012, and this is called Rio Plus 20. That means after 20 years later, again, we came back to Rio to form the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, understanding the brief background to the sustainable development, we will also try to understand resource. Resource is made up of two words, re plus source. Re means long term and source means meaning or ways. So therefore, resource is the source on which human society depends for a long period. So anything can be a resource which provides human health again and again and satisfy the human requirements. Therefore, anything which satisfy the human requirements is known as resource. Resources are combined the result of three factors, as I have already shown in the diagram, that it is found in the form of man, nature, and culture. So it means anything becomes a resource when these three components interacts with each other. So man means the human resource, nature means the natural resources like water, air, forest, minerals, oceanic resources, fishing, anything, minerals, and culture reflects here the technology. So technology helps men to develop natural resources. So therefore, resources are basically the result of human needs, which changes in the context of human economic, technical, and cultural development. So this is a resource. Resources also carries two things, that resources also have utility as well as functionality. According to the functionality, when a thing fulfills the human needs through its work, then it is called a resource. For example, resource coal is not a resource on the basis of its color, size, or organization, but coal is a resource based on its functions because it provides energy, isn't it? So an archaeological human was unaware of these huge deposits of minerals like coal, iron, and other things, but their use, when the human being have understood their use, these natural things affected neither the human side nor the opposition, and they were neutral stuff. But for a modern human, these things are doing amazing work, amazing functions, and therefore they are satisfying human needs, and therefore are resources for us. On the other hand, utility is also important. Utility means they are useful. They are important feature of resources. Water, air, sunlight, land, all are useful for human beings. Water for drinking purposes, industrial purposes, air for breathing, sunlight for solar energy, for doing lots of work, land for agriculture, forest for bio ecosystem services, coal as the form of energy. All these are very important. So according to the functionality, When a thing fulfills the human needs through its work, then it's called a resources. So therefore, function and utility are important, you can say, qualifiers or the important things by which anything becomes an important resource. So resources are of various types. I think you have seen this classification at several places. We can divide resources based on their locations, like the resources which are found on land, they are called land resources, which are found in marinal environment, or marine resources. Based on continued availability, they can be classified as renewable and non-renewable. Renewable, which can be which can be renewed after use, like forest. Non-renewable, which gets exhausted and are not available. Potential means they have the capacity to develop, like solar energy. Developed resources, like those resources which are developed to their full potential. And stock resources, that means those things which have the potential but still we are not able to develop them. Exhaustible and non-exhaustible, that means they will finish or not. Based on that, based on occurrence, resources are also classified into three categories. Uniquity means found at everywhere or to many locations. Ubiquitous means found everywhere. Common or rare means they are found, they are very common resources and found very particular places. Based on property, resources are of two types: private resources and common resources. Common resources like land, which is easily available to all of us. Private means the resources of the individual people. Now, coming on to the main section of the presentation, that is water sustainability. Water sustainability is what we understand means by sustainable water, what it means actually. So when we go by definition, we see sustainable water means that a nation should be or shall be or should be or can be water self-sufficient, ensuring that there is sufficient amount of water to meet the needs of various sectors. It can be agriculture, it can be industry, it can be human beings. So when you have this kind of self-sufficiency, you can say that you have managed your water well, isn't it? And obviously, you have to keep in mind the intergenerational and intragenerational equity, that water should not be available only for the present generation, but it should also be available for future generations. So if you have maintained that, you can say that you have self-sufficiency in water resources. And achieving sustainable water management requires not a single disciplinary activity. It's a multidisciplinary and holistic approach in which technical, environmental, economic, landscape, aesthetic, societal, and cultural issues are addressed, isn't it? So this is very important dimensions of water sustainability. Water sustainability also means water supply remains consistent despite of many disasters, maybe climate change impacts, or maybe lack of rainfall or drought. In any case, you should have the sufficient amount of water available with you to fulfill your basic requirements. Sustainable water also means that the economics stack up in matching supply and demand, and the water delivery process is as sufficient as possible. Water sustainability also means effective and holistic management of water resources. There are various demands for water resources, which derives the need for sustainable, integrated, and holistic water management. Why water sustainability? Sustainability is very important because the distribution of the Earth's water resource is unequal. There is only 3% fresh water available. And this 3% water is also not available to each and every country in a rational way. There are 68.7% of water of this total fresh water is found in the form of ice caps and glaciers. And groundwater is almost 30% of it. And only there is 0.3% water which is available in the form of surface water, in the form of rivers, in the forms of lakes, in the forms of rivers, lakes, tanks, canals. And this 0.3% is found in the lakes, in the swamps, in the rivers, or maybe other forms. So therefore, we have very small amount of water which is available directly to us to fulfill our social demands, economic demands, power generation demands, irrigation demands, so many things. And that is why we require the sustainability of water, not only for our current generation people, but also for the upcoming generations as well. And then we will be able to ensure water sustainability. So this is the objective. So again, you can see groundwater is also very less, and therefore water, as you know, it is used for several purposes. It is used for agriculture. 70% of water withdrawals worldwide is only for agriculture sector. And it is said that by 2050, world agriculture will need to produce 60% more food globally, and particularly 100% more in developing countries because the population is rising. For other, industry and energy is the second important sector where water is consumed almost 20% of total water demand. More developed countries are having much more proportion of fresh water withdrawal for industry than the less developed or developing economies. The third important sector where water is used is domestic sector, where almost 10% of the total water is used worldwide. And because of the more and more urbanization, the cities are within the domestic, the cities, urban areas, and you know, more than half of the world is now already started living in urban areas. So more and more consumption of and new types of water consumption patterns are emerging, isn't it? The urban people requires huge amount of water to cover up their daily activities. So in that way, water consumption or water use is going to increase, and therefore, and simultaneously, use is also increasing, as well as problems related to it are also on the increasing side. So basically, I have three problems related to water. That is water scarcity, that reflects its problem of quantity, available quantity of water. And on the other side, its quality, water quality in the form of that huge amount of water pollution we are doing it. And the third is because of the over withdrawals, we are experiencing groundwater depletion. So these three are the important problems. Water scarcity, that means the quantity is decreasing day to day over the time. Why? Because of the population and the income is increasing. More population, more consumption, more wastage, more income, more consumption. This is what general perception is all about. The cities people, urban people are consuming more water than the people in rural areas because of their income. The concentration of population at particular place promotes more concretization, more urbanization, which hampers the infiltration process, and due to which there is no groundwater recharge, and hence the surface water availability is less. And we are not, the problem is not only here, but the climate change. The temperature is rising, evaporation rates are becoming high. Variability, the seasons are shifting, summers have increased, winters have decreased. Infiltration is less, surface runoff is more. Evaporation rates are high, infiltration is less. We are doing lots of land use, land cover changes. More and more concretization is going on. And these urban areas, these industrial use of water is creating lots of burden on the water resources. Huge amount of domestic effluents, industrial effluents, chemical effluents, medical effluents are contaminating the existing water resources. And therefore, we are experiencing a failure that we are not able to manage water resources. Our demands are on rise. Over time, we are not able to control our demands. The people are aware that water is so important for all of us, for all our life. but still we are demanding more and more water. If a single day water is not available in our society or in our tap, we will be on the crying side. The sudden increase in the amount, or you can say the prices for a particular can amount of water, we keep on shouting, we are on the roads that there is no water. So there are financial and institutional obstacles. Not only the people, but the government has also been on the failure side, that it has not been able to manage it. There are lots of institutions who are looking after the water management, but there are financial constraints. They say that we do not have money to cover up the leakages. Huge amount of water gets wastage because of these leakages in the old and outdated constructed pipelines. There are institutional overlapping. PWD, Public Works Department, and the development authorities and municipal corporations all have overlapping objectives. They say that it is their responsibility. They say it is their responsibility. Just passing the bucket and not understanding their own responsibility. And that is why we face these kind of challenges. Water pollution is another issue. Medical waste, agricultural waste, industrial waste, domestic waste. Now the waste is also getting generated from tourism activities. In hilly areas, you go to the hill towns, now they are no more the tourist spots. You see the Mussoorie, Dehradun, they are experiencing huge water crisis. And they were the favorite hotspots or tourism spots for the visitors in a particular time period. But now they are no more. Now people are moving towards the higher Himalayas. Lots of medical waste is generated and get thrown into the wastewater, which cannot be recycled. Solid waste, huge amount of solid waste is generated into the cities or into the urban areas. And these urban areas are also engines of growth and also the engines of solid waste generation. The third problem is groundwater depletion. Because of the overdraft, waterlogging, salinization, inadequate drainage, insufficient consumptive use, pollution or contamination due to agriculture, industrial and other human activities are some of the major problems. Overexploitation of groundwater in certain areas has resulted in progressive lowering of water levels. And therefore, it is also reflected in decline in the yield and productivity of wells. It doesn't signify total exhaustion of groundwater, rather depletion in the stock of groundwater. Excess overdraft of water for irrigation lead to groundwater depletion and mismanagement. Combinedly, there is no infiltration and there is an overdraft. So obviously the groundwater level will go down. So coming on to the last section of my talk is that what kind of measures we can have to achieve sustainability of water resources. I have suggested 3 ways: short term, medium term, or long term. So to achieve water sustainability, we have to work on the 3 levels. We have to work upon long-term policies, medium-term policies, as well as short-term policies. The short-term policies will look after the relief, social crisis, health loss, agricultural deficit, rainfall failure, meteorological forecast. So we have to do meteorological forecasting better so that rainfall failure we can assume, and then we can be able to manage our crops. There will be no crop failure. In medium term, we have to do drought proofing, environmental prediction, water trends, dwindling trends. We have to do crop adjustment we have to manage rainfall failure so that we are not in the situation of disaster situation. And in the long term, we have to go for environmental assessment, that what kind of environment we have, what kind of policies that in particular environment require, what kind of land use will be suitable for that region. And accordingly, we should prepare policies. And then we should go ahead. So further, I have also suggested some measures that conservation and management of water is described as having the right amount of water available for a particular use at a right time and with the right quality. So if we make available all people of this country that water should be available in right amount, that means quantity, and of right time means accessibility, and with the right quality, that will be the best management of water resources for any given region. And for that, we have to take initiatives. We have to take some policy measures. And being the citizen, being the society, we have the responsibility more. We have not to be dependent upon the governance. We have to take action. This time is not to suggest. This time, the time has come that when we have to act. So consumptive use of surface and groundwater is a widely practiced policy, that the shortage of one season is supplemented by excess of the other season. In rainfall season, rainy season, we have sufficient amount of water. In winter, we have sufficient amount of water, but in summer we have a deficit. So we should save that water which we receive during the rainy season, the surplus water. We should restore it. We should store it. We should harvest it. And it should be utilized during the dry period when we face the deficit of water. And for that, we require that rainwater harvesting should be made strictly a mandatory activity for all of us, not only in rural areas or wherever, and particularly in urban areas, actually. And if it is done at the rural areas as well, then it will be fantastic. Technically feasible sites should be identified in rural areas and urban areas, and action should be taken. It is said that rainwater harvesting can fulfill your local irrigation and drinking water needs. And some people are taking great initiatives, which I will discuss in the last section. Rooftop harvesting is very important, particularly for urban areas where the construction is maximum. So if you can't do rainwater harvesting, so you make the roofs in such a way that, and the water should be channelized and harvested using tanks and other things. The rooftop should be kept clean and free from dusty particles and other things, so that water should be purified before it gets supplied. And it is said this type of harvesting, water harvesting, could meet about 60% of water requirements. So rainwater harvesting is very important. The rainfall pattern is changing. There are particular days when the rain is more than the average rain. Because of the concretization, water is only flowing on the surface, waterlogging. We have experienced the scenarios of Delhi. We get the pictures from Calcutta or from Mumbai, everywhere. But if we have sufficient measures to harvest that surplus water, we can control this problem. Another suggestion is irrigation management. In order to ensure sustainable irrigated farming, it is necessary to take suitable measures to understand the situation locationally. We have to go for proper cropping patterns. We should not go against the soil, that what soil suggests and what you are trying to get it from the soil. We have to adopt suitable soil and water management practices. Like dry land agriculture should be promoted and practices wherever there is a less amount of water. Indira Gandhi Canal is the best example for us that the soil was not suitable for the crops which were grown after the introduction of the Indira Gandhi Canal. But now that area is facing huge environmental challenges to restore its original state. So if we don't want that, we want to go into that kind of situation when we will not bounce back. So we have to understand that what is requirement and what we have to do. We should go for adoption of water saving devices like drip irrigation and sprinkler irrigation. The government should give subsidies to these things. Government and the private agencies gives lots of subsidies for car loans, for bike loans, for home loans, but there is not a single, some small plans are there only, and in which there are lots of conditions for the farmers that they can only get sprinkler or drip irrigation subsidy when they will fulfill the particular requirements. I think they should be given it without any condition. The political parties wants to take only political benefits from the people, but don't want to do anything for them. The time has come to do something realistically for the farmers. I think we should also motivate people to have community irrigation wells, and they should form water cooperatives, because there are more farmers in the country which are small farmers, have small and fragmented land holdings, and do not qualify for assistance for institution from governments. And therefore, farmers are required to form cooperatives and share the water from wells. So people 6, 7 or 8 or 10 people can make a water cooperative, can have a single well, because the cost of constructing well and the amount of production will not match. But if there are 10 people, 20 people, then I think the benefits can be shared. And this approach shall lead to the economy in water use and overcapitalization. Desalinization is another emerging challenge. Salinization is another emerging problem, having lots of health consequences like cholera. So water treatment plants should be there in rural areas, 5, 6 villages. One water treatment plant can be sufficient to provide safe drinking water in these areas. We are saying again and again, go for multiple use of water. Each drop, every drop of water should be used and reused wherever it is possible judiciously. Every one of us who are sitting in this session knows that we should go for multiple use of water, but how many of us are really practicing it? All of us are well aware, but how much of us are taking actions? Very few of us. We have to think and rethink on this issue. We have to control our demands. Otherwise, the water pricing we have water metering now. But if you want that only the petrol prices should rise or other things should rise, and if you don't want to face the situation of that water pricings are increasing. Till now, we are only concerned about the milk pricing or the pricings of petrol or CNG and like that. We don't want to face that situation in which water will be priced. And if we will not take action, the situation is not very far. And I think the situation is now, I think. Until the situation becomes worse, we should go for water pricing. And I think that will help us in preventing waste and unreasonable use of water, particularly in the cities or in the urban areas where the wastage is maximum. Obviously, nothing is possible without the community participation. Only benefits, maximum benefits can only be received when the people are involved. People participation is there. Without their involvement, without their support, nothing is impossible. Awareness is there. The time is to give actions. Water diversion from surplus area, yes, interlinking of rivers has been very much in the news, but not implemented at the large scale. But yes, we have seen some success stories from small links have been created and they are doing wonderful job. So I think water diversion, instead of having interlinking of rivers, I think water diversion is the better to divert the water from surplus area to the deficit areas for their economic and social and physical and technical development. There are constraints, no doubt about it. There is lots of cost is involved, but small linkages, looking at their feasibility. If they are feasible, I think we should go for it. If not, then we should strictly not. I'm not against, I'm not against, in favor. But we have to do socio-economic environmental analysis, SWOG analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats of that project. And if it is feasible, and if it is good, then we should go for it. Yes, role of various institutions like panchayats, government, NGOs in identifying, locating traditional water harvesting system, installing these systems, taking care of these systems, Boweries, old rainwater harvesting structures developed through the indigenous knowledge have huge role. They were sustainable. I'm writing one paper on that how old traditional rainwater harvesting structures contributed in the sustainability or in water sustainability. They have a huge role. We have to go back to that knowledge to ensure our future sustainability, particularly water sustainability. The government can only play a fairly facilitating role in the form of formulating policies, implementing policies, spreading awareness, taking decisions related to water resource management. But it is ultimately we have to take action. We have to support it. We have to be the actor. We have to take action. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for the government to initiate and to get the fruitful result of the water sustainability measures. And we have examples in the society where people have done a marvelous work. I think all of us knows about Anna Hazare, who mobilized the villagers of Ralegan Siddhi to build their own percolation tanks. In 70s, Siddhi was a drought-hit, destitute village, but now it has become one of the richest village because of the successful efforts in rainwater harvesting. Maharashtra also set an examples by means of Pani Panchayats. The movement started in 1972, and it has become effort to treat water as a human right. Water rights are based on the number of family members. They can use their share of water the way they please, but cash crops like sugarcane, which drain the water resources, are prohibited. Plus, Anna Hazare, then you have Rajendra Singh, the waterman of India. In Rajasthan, Rajendra Singh, who is the Raman Magsaysay awardee for community leadership in 2001, has raised lots of villages, created and constructed lots of johats in and around the Jaipur city of Rajasthan. A simple mud and rubble concave shaped barriers across the slope, again to harvest rainwater. The construction of johat has led to the abundant availability of water with better crop production, now better conditions of soils, education, and rich community life in Rajasthan nowadays. So starting from a single village in 1985, over the years, this NGO, Tarun Bharat Sangh, helped to develop over 8,600 juhas and water conservation structures. And they have brought water back to over 1,000 villages and revived 5 rivers in Rajasthan: Aravari, Ruparel, Sarsa, Bhunani, Bhagani, and Jajwali. All these examples made us proud. And there are lots of people are still engaged with the people of the society, that how they can manage their water sustainably. They have to go for that. We do not have any choice left. So water sustainability means we should not only look after our current generations, but also we have to look forward for our future generations, because they also require water. If we will not be able to provide them sufficient amount of water, their development will be hampered, their sustainability will be hampered. So it is the responsibility of us that what Brundtland Commission has suggested and where we are, we have to take the responsibility, and we have to give this responsibility to our future generations, that they should not also think about themselves. They should also look for future. If we will grow a good fruit for us, for future generation, obviously this tradition has to come into picture. And that is why the futures will be then in our hands. So water sustainability is the need of the hour. And based on this, I just can say that all of us are very much aware of water management, significance of water resources, and everything. Please sensitize yourself. Take actions at micro level. There is no need to do big things. Take small initiatives. You can do wonderful work and contribute in achieving the water sustainability in India and on the world. Thank you so much.